Yes, sir.
I wonder if you just take a moment and review your background. I'm from Londonderry. I know you were mayor of Manchester, and I don't know a lot about you. And specifically, I'd like to ask one question.
Sure.
Have you ever been a card-carrying member of the union?
No, I have not. The question was have I ever been a card-carrying member of a union? The answer is no.
Okay. Would you take just a moment and briefly review your background, your education?
Sure.
Okay.
Be happy to.
Etc.
I went to Assumption College in Worcester, Mass., a small Catholic school, and I got a master's in politics, a double master's in politics and philosophy. I went to Franklin Pierce Law Center, got my master's in intellectual property. While I was doing that, I was essentially in a micro business. I was a consultant for insurance for small to medium-sized companies, and I would help them reduce their workers' comp and general liability costs. I got into that business because after college, I worked at Travelers Insurance, and I was an adjuster. Didn't particularly care for that work, but I got into marketing, and I got into creating self-insurance groups, and that essentially got me into my own small business and trying to help small, medium-sized companies save money in comp and liability. And it's easier said than done. It's very challenging to try to contain costs in those areas. Once I got my master's in intellectual property, I had an opportunity to run for a state representative seat in the House, State House. I was living downtown Manchester, again, a Republican in a Democrat ward, and I won. It was a great campaign. I went door to door, I think like most people do in New Hampshire. And on election night, I was fortunate enough to win, and I appreciated the opportunity to serve New Hampshire. More importantly, I think I learned a lot about your word and your commitment to people and how you conduct yourself and how to govern. Then the next year I had an opportunity to run for alderman in the city in the same ward. I was running against a very popular Democrat who lived in the ward for 30 years, and everyone said, well, Frank, you can't win. There's no way you can win. Lo and behold, that night, results were counted and I won. So I was serving as a state legislator and as an alderman. I ran for re-election for both and I won. And then in 2005, I considered running for mayor. And I remember how many people told me, Frank, you're a good guy, but you can't win. We got a popular mayor. He's a long-time Manchester resident. You can't win. And that seemed to be a recurring theme with people who were giving me advice. You can't win. And one of the things I tell people is don't listen to people when they say you can't do something. Because I believe that if you set your mind to something, you can do it. And if you have something to offer that people believe in, they will support you. So in 2005, I set off to run for mayor. And in the beginning, not many people gave me a chance. But just like I'm doing now, I took a year of my life off and focused 100% of my time and energy in running, and I talked about two major issues: cutting taxes, because we had 6 consecutive tax hikes in the city of Manchester, and I thought we could do better. And we had a violent crime rate that was rising, that had risen over 6 years by 55%. Two things that I thought were detrimental to the city of Manchester. So about a week or two, 1 or 2 weeks away from the general election, I remember very fondly how then the presidential nominee John Kerry came up and was campaigning for my opponent. So here's the guys running for president coming up to campaign against little old me, who couldn't win. And that weekend happened to be 70 degrees. We had an ice cream truck, and we went around to every park and every football game and every part of the city giving out ice cream. And I was able to talk with people about my message and what I wanted to try to do for the city. And that night, on election night, if you remember this, the paper, I still remember because it happened to me, but it said, "Surprise, it's Kinta." Surprised people again because I won. But it wasn't necessarily me who had that victory. I think it was a message. And it was a we can do better, things can be done differently. And I set on a course to do exactly what I said I would do in my campaign. I said I'm going to do everything I can to cut your taxes. The first year I proposed a tax cut, didn't get it through. There were 11 Democrats on the board, 2 Republicans and 1 independent. Didn't get my tax cut through that year, but we cut spending. Cut bonding by 50% in my first year. Second year, we got a tax cut through. First tax cut passed in a decade in the city of Manchester. Now that was an election year. People were watching. The people who voted were watching the all. And I had campaigned now for 2 years about why I thought it was critically important to cut spending, to cut taxes, to prioritize our budget. And the other thing I focused on was getting rid of the problem nightclubs and bars in downtown that were taking over our downtown. The violent crime rate had to be addressed, and I refocused our dollars and our resources to add police officers to focus on the problem that I thought we had in the city. Because I'm proud of Manchester, and I think many people, whether you live in Manchester or work there, it's part of New Hampshire. And we want to be proud of every aspect of New Hampshire. So I spent, the next 3 years, got reelected in '07, doing everything I could to lead and make Manchester the great city that it is. And I could have run for re-election and continued to serve, and I would have happily. It's a great honor. But the issues that are facing us today are far too critical, far too important for me to put my head in the sand. And like '05, I said I can do something about this, or I can let somebody else try. But I'm a doer. So I'm setting out for this campaign, much like I did in '05. It doesn't matter to me what people, if they think I can win or if they think I can't win. I'm running this race as effectively as I possibly can, communicating with people, asking people what they want to see in their member of Congress. And then I'll be back here after I'm a member of Congress to allow anyone to give me a scorecard. Let me know how you think I'm doing. But the one thing I can promise you is that you're always going to have access, as people did in Manchester, to their mayor. People are always going to have access to their congressman. Yes?
What aspect of Carol Shea Porter's, what aspect of Carol Shea Porter's record most troubles you? And there's a lot of material.
Let me first say, I applaud anyone who puts their name on a ballot, regardless of party and regardless of positions. I've done it. It's hard to do. It's sometimes hard for people to take criticism and to have people critique them. So I applaud her for wanting to serve her state. And I'll continue to say that of anybody who runs, because I do really think I think we in New Hampshire appreciate it when people want to serve. I disagree with her on just almost about every issue. Every single issue. I do not support a government-run health care plan. I do not support as she does cap and trade. I do not support as she co-authored card check. I do not support this notion that federal money, federal stimulus in all these different areas are going to get us out of this recession. I do not support the notion that more spending will result in a positive economic outcome. So there are many things that we disagree on. But that being said, let me tell you folks, she's a member of Congress. She won in '06 and she won in '08. Nobody should take anyone lightly who's on a ballot or who's an incumbent, and I won't. And I've been asked, how hard are you going to campaign? Because people say, well, she's vulnerable. Yeah, she's vulnerable. But you know what? I've got to do my job to convince people that I'm the best person to represent them, and I've got to earn the votes. Yeah. And that's the campaign that I plan on running, because that's important to me.
Hopefully this soon-to-be ex-Senator Harry Reid made a big deal about how he was declaring health care no longer to be a privilege, but to be a right.